Welcome back to another episode of Football Talk Squadron. I'm Maul.
And I'm Dutch.
And in this episode, as a request from a viewer, we had a viewer call in, and they wanted to get our take on the current running back situation and more or less the salary cap or, contract negotiation.
Why does the
saga.
NFL hate running
yeah,
backs?
saga that's going on with the running backs. So we'll get into that. But as always, our favorite game. I believe it's my turn to give the clues here. So you want past or present first?
Let's go present.
Present. Okay. This one, I didn't know this one. I had to look it up, but I think this is a good one. We'll see how many people can get it or if the viewers can beat you on their time here. Household name, top fantasy pick, guy who kills it week in, week out, Austin Eckler.
Oh, I don't know why I feel like I know this. Did he go to the same school as Cooper Kupp? Was it Western? God, where did Cooper Kupp go? It wasn't Western. I don't know where Cooper Kupp went. I can see the emblem on their helmet.
What is it?
It's like a little eagle.
Okay, so that is where Cooper Kupp went.
But Austin Eckler.
Do you want
what's the conference? Is it Pac-5 or is it?
No, it's like FCS.
Oh, I'd have to guess like Northern Colorado or just
So close. How about just a different direction?
Southern Colorado?
Another
Eastern, Western?
Yeah, all right, the number 4. Western Colorado, dude.
Wow.
No idea, but Cooper Kupp went to Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington,
Yeah,
that's them.
So it's funny that you were completely wrong with but it got you in the same mindset of like direction in a state. But yeah, Western Colorado. I don't even know what division they're in. Or
I didn't even know there was skull.
Yeah. I don't know. At least the eagle emblem, I knew that because of Cooper Kupp, but I couldn't tell you what their mascot even was.
You could literally hand me a helmet of their school, and if it didn't have the name on it, and they were like, I'll give you $1 million if you tell me this school, I'm going to go, huh? Like, what high school is this? But no, goodness sakes. Wow. I mean, what a pull.
I mean, again, it just goes to show, and like I always bring up the Jerry Rice stats of just like, if you play well, they will find you. Like, the NFL will find you no matter where you are if you show out.
I mean, Cooper Kupp is a great – I mean, his tape alone is unreal at Western Washington. Like
I think it's Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington. Yeah. Sean McVay talks about it. He's like I think they were looking at like a defensive lineman or something, and they saw his film, and they were like, who is this guy that is catching everything?
Yeah.
Everything and getting away from everyone, because he was putting up like 150 catches a year. Like, it's sort of like exactly like what you said. It was Jerry Rice numbers at a smaller school, but everyone was like, no, smaller school guy, this kid ain't gonna make it. And now he's made it. Like, Super Bowl MVP, he's done pretty well. So yeah, that's a great one for.
I just can't imagine having the talent of Cooper Kupp or Austin Eckler and playing at a school like Eastern Washington or Western Colorado. Like, how fun that must have been for them to just be like, this is easy.
At the same time, it also really speaks to like the college teams that miss on talent. Like, all these like, oh, this is a 5-star guy. And it's
yeah.
This guy wasn't even rated coming out of high school, but he is one of the best players in the NFL right now. Yeah, anytime, if you're one of those fans that like, can't believe we missed on this 5-star, settle, because the likelihood that he's going to be this magical player for you, there's so many people they miss on, especially going to college. That's a great one.
All right, going with the pass now. This one I think is a little bit of a softball, but I'll give it to you. All right, school, Wisconsin.
Okay.
NFL teams were the Giants.
Rondé.
Yeah, the Broncos and the Texans. Yeah, that was an easy one. I knew that was going to be an easy one. You know what's funny is I know he was like a Giant way longer than he was any other, but in my mind, I always see him as a Bronco. Like, I think it was when we were growing up, there was a Thanksgiving game on, and he like balled out during that Thanksgiving game, and he got like I don't know what it was called back then, like the Gobbling Turkey Award or whatever, and he's like on TV like eating a drumstick, and like that's just like forever cemented in my mind where he like to me is a Bronco, and I know he played for the Giants.
Was it just the Giants and Broncos? Sorry, I probably should have let you finish.
Giants, Broncos, and then Texans.
I don't remember any of that with the Texans, but
and he only played for the Broncos for a year. I think it was the Broncos for a year and the Texans for a year, but the front end of his career was all with the Giants.
And for him, it was just that standpoint of, he had been through the gamut at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like, talk about a guy that, I think he still may hold the rushing record for career rushing yards.
Career rushing yards at the college level. I'm pretty sure he still holds it.
And it hurt him going to now the Giants weren't a good team when he showed up, and that didn't help him out.
In 2000.
Yeah, that's pre-Eli. I couldn't even tell you. I think that's Kerry Collins' time frame.
Or Phil Simms, maybe?
When Phil left, yeah.
I don't know. But it was a long time ago.
I just remember, I think he was a part of the Super Bowl team that they got absolutely blasted by the Baltimore Ravens.
By the Ravens, yeah.
Yeah, like they just... Now, the only guy I remember off of that team outside on the defense was Seahorn. Remember that name?
Talking about Giants?
Yes.
Mm-mm.
I have to... He makes a great pick. Like, I remember it's like pretty much the ball like somehow stays on his back. He like rolls over, catches it. It was a great pick. Jason Seahorn, he was a really big safety with the Giants back in the day, but back in the day, which is sort of, it's honestly a big part of this episode of the running back market.
Yeah. So speaking of back in the day, we can just jump right into it. Your thoughts on the current situation of teams not paying running backs? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Got any stats you want to bring out?
I think there's a bunch of different aspects to this.
Do you agree with it? Do you don't agree with it?
I agree with it from this standpoint. The biggest one is you take a look at how football teams spend money. Who touches the play or who touches the ball every single play? The quarterback. Him getting paid the most money makes total sense. I have zero qualms with that. We can get into the argument of how much should that guy make. It's not based upon talent in terms of so much of how much is a percentage of that cap, because then it's based upon how you're going to spread it for the rest.
Sure.
I just look at when you take a look at old school, and by old school, we're talking early 2000s is sort of when this market started to shift. You think about, you're coming off of having Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, and really I would say the last stable running back in terms of consecutive years before getting hurt, which is a key part of this, was AP.
Yeah.
AP sort of the last back that I'm man, that was a guy that people would really go spend a pick on. Now, Bijan Robinson, they went and got with the fifth pick, with a lot of people were oh man, it's sort of giving them PTSD because of Zeke Elliott. I think Bijan's showing something different.
Well, to that, anytime, and it hasn't happened recently. It's been very infrequent of recent years. But anytime a running back gets drafted that high, typically does pretty well. At least their first season.
Up until the 2000s. So when you take a look at drafts and you go through first round, especially first round, there were 4 to 6 running backs taken every single first round.
Yeah.
Since 2000, I think there's been 6 drafts that no running backs have gone in the first round.
This gets to the point of the game is changing.
Yes.
And I almost look at it, and this is just how I feel. I've got some stats here in a second, but to me, it was the greatest show on turf. That was kind of the breaking or the changing of the guard, if you will. It took a few years, I think, for the rest of the league to kind of catch on. But that 99, 2000 Rams team was the greatest show on turf. And they were the first team, I feel to just really air it out and throw the ball like crazy.
They also had a Hall of Famer in Marshall Faulk.
Well, yeah. So again, Marshall Faulk was a huge part of that team. However, that offense, there's a reason why they call it that. It was the first time, I feel and again, as far as I can remember, that was they're doing something different. They were doing things on the field that other teams weren't doing as far as offense goes. Now, my stats don't go back that far. As far as I go back is '03. But again, it's close enough. And again, you can kind of see the changing of, I went back and looked at the last 20 years. So from '03 to 22, the average yards per game of the number one offense. Not the number one like scoring offense, but who had the most passing yards average per game. And that offense. And in '03, it was 266 yards. Passing yards per game. Okay? So, again, not anything huge, but, like, this is, I think, the changing of the guard. So, for the next 5 years, it went 294, 277, 280, and 285. Again, there's a little bit of a transition, but it's everybody trying to catch up to, like, what the Rams were doing. '08 was the first year over 300 yards per game. And since then, so then the last 15 years, there's only been 4 years where the number one offense was under 300.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, the game is changing where it used to be get a good running back. That's like the primary of your offense because you got to run the ball first. And now it's sling the ball downfield and score as many points as you can. So, naturally, the running back has been devalued in these offenses.
I think, devalued, it's a different, I personally don't like the word. I get it from the monetary perspective across the board. What I have found, take a look at just who the running backs are. Like when you think about early 2000s, it's like you got the bus, Ron Dane. You know, it's guys that were just like these big physical backs that what is their job? I need you to run downhill and gain yards. Now, under the passing thing, this is where like those bigger backs, like, and I even equate it to like today's game and Derrick Henry. Like, you don't see Derrick Henry going out for a pass, like maybe a screen every once in a while, but you don't ever see Derrick Henry lining up in a slot. But now, Bijan Robinson during the game, why did Tyler Algier get all the carry, like a bunch more carries? It wasn't because Robinson wasn't on the field. He's over in the slot. Like, it's the ability to take this guy and make him multidimensional. Because I think a lot of the backs, especially when you look from about like mid-2006 before that time frame, they're super one-dimensional. It's like, I just need you to run the ball. And now with the passing offense, it's like, not only do I need you to run the ball from time to time, more importantly, you've got to be a threat out of the backfield.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that either don't make the number one spot or, you know, are bouncing around different teams because they can't catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of that also adds up to, in terms of like player safety, the one position that I find that like no one really cares about, it's running back.
Yeah.
Like, dude, no one like if you're running through the hole, no one cares if like the safety's running full speed and just blows you up.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, there's all these, like, no lowering the head and blah, blah, blah stuff, but, like, as a running back going head-to-head with a linebacker, like, that's the only thing that they're doing. Like, that's how they run and get tackled.
And it doesn't help when you have guys that are, like, defensive tackles, 6'5", 280. Oh, by the way, he ran a 4.3.
Yeah.
Like,
tackling dudes like Deuce Vaughn, who's 5'5".
Yeah, and if you watch them hit, like, a running back, like a quarterback, it's like you can't follow him with your body weight. I've never seen someone not just pile drive the running back and get a flag.
So that brings up a good point, and we'll kind of transition into that of, I think, again, one of the reasons why running backs are getting devalued is the injuries. Like,
yeah,
whether it's, again, the way the games are, how people are playing, whatever it is, injuries and running back go hand in hand. And it's very difficult to see these running backs really be, like, momentous, like good game breaker running backs and also have a long career. You brought it up. AP was probably the last one to like really be a year in, year out stud, right? There's been plenty.
And even he blew his knee out.
Yeah. Now he came back and had like one of the best years of his career. But again, yeah, like there's been great running backs any given year, and guys have gone on good little runs of like, ooh, that guy's really dominant for like a year or two, but then they fade out, and injuries are typically a big part of it. So from an owner's standpoint, like if you were an owner, it makes sense to not pay that guy all that money after his rookie deal, because it's like, dude, after your rookie deal, you've probably only got a few years left, if that, before you get hurt. and now I've sunk all this money into you. What am I supposed to do with that?
Well, I mean, when you talk about sinking money in the guys, that's the immediate thing that sort of also comes to mind is, let me tell you, you get burned by a bad deal, you don't do it again. Like, think about some of the bigger deals that have been made.
Unless you're the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. God. But, I mean, Zeke's the last guy that I know that gets a really big deal. What happens? Terrible.
Yeah.
Like, beyond terrible.
Yeah.
And they can't get rid of him. Why? Because it can't.
I mean, that's not exclusive to the running back position, though. I mean, that happens to quarterbacks 2 or 3 times a year, it seems like.
But what I would say is like when you think about who's like leading the league in rushing, and then the next year, like Zeke's one of them. Another guy who left Dallas, went to the Eagles, DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
Like has this great year.
Well, I think he led the NFL in rushing with the Cowboys.
Goes to the Eagles, gets all this money.
Disappeared.
Trash.
Yeah.
Then you have like Shady McCoy. Leaves the Eagles, goes to Buffalo. It's not that he was bad, but it was like these guys are getting this money going, and they're like, man, the Eagles are not missing a beat. Cowboys are not missing a beat. That's the other sort of, I think it is like this volume thing that when you take a look at, there's 126 Division I schools out there. Every one of them's got a running back, if not 2. So in terms of just guys that you can find to run the ball downhill, those are easier.
So again, the game is changing where running back by committee. I mean, that's like, I feel like it's probably been a term for maybe like the last like 3 or 4 years, but like before that, running back by committee like wasn't a thing. That was like an oddity, right? Because it was always like, who's their running back? And nowadays it's like, it's an oddity to see a team with only one running back that's like getting the bulk of the carries. There's like always, and again, from an owner's perspective, it makes sense, right? Because it's like, even if you're really good, I don't even want to hand you the ball so much because the wear and tear. Or, I mean, this is the great argument against like the Titans. The Titans' entire offense is Derrick Henry, right? And when an opposing defense can shut down Derrick Henry, Titans have no chance of winning, right? So from like an owner's and a coach's perspective, it's like, I don't want to build my entire offense around that one guy, no matter how good he is, because if he goes down or the opposing defense finds a way to stop him, we're through. Like, we need options in other places, and you can find other running backs. You could have 3 guys equal the same thing that like Derrick Henry can offer you or Saquon Barkley can offer you.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to like the pass, the other thing about Henry is like he's not a great pass blocking running back, and ultimately that's the thing that's changed with the running back.
Which I don't know how, if you're the size of a refrigerator, you can't just step in front of somebody and block them.
Yes, I find that they almost like they're not being the aggressor with the football. So now the defender's being the aggressor, and it's like I'm not really.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know how to like hit, and
I'm not doing this. Like I attack you, not you attack me.
I just know if I came around like a O lineman and I saw Derrick Henry square up on me, I'd be like,
oh, you'd be like
patty cake.
Geno Smith when Aaron Donald.
Oh my God. Business decision.
Yeah, business. I'm out. Which the other thing, this is a different side note. I don't think it had the direct implication on the running back market, but it didn't help. Is we were sort of talking earlier. I gave out a name of a tight end, asking where he went to school. Algie Crumpler. And like you look at this guy, tight end position, especially in the early 2000s. Like we talked about Algie, we talked about Bubba Franks. We're talking about huge, really offensive linemen that had good enough
a little
hands.
Bit faster and can catch a ball. Yeah.
And where were they really the threat? It was in the red zone. It was like, I don't need you. Never would you see Bubba Franks running down 50 yards down the field catching balls all the time. It was like if that happened, it was like, oh man, did you see that? That was amazing. It was because they needed that big guy to provide the run.
Because the game back then was about the running
yes.
back. And nowadays, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Travis Kelce, I mean, right now is the greatest tight end we have,
and he blocks really good.
There's probably the 2 other tight ends. I think Blake Bell and that other guy are probably better blockers than Travis Kelce is. Now he's an okay blocker, but like he's not the greatest. But why is he like the greatest tight end right now? My man is basically a big receiver.
He's a mismatch. Like that's what it comes down to, creating mismatches. And like I would argue that every tight end in the game right now is a threat in the passing offense, but where are they weak now? Blocking.
They're not good blockers.
It's like a trade-off. NFL teams look at it and they go, look, I would rather take a Kelsey who's, 6'5", 250 or something going against this tight end than my smaller running back, because he's a mismatch. Like, this guy, big size, is going to be able to go up, get balls, take shots from linebackers. Yeah. And it's a pass first type of game. Yes. So they're getting paid more. Yeah. Which it pulls a few million away from the running backs. Yeah.
Like that cap percentage again. Yes. The running backs aren't getting it.
And the health thing's big. You can't underestimate, because when I think about who would you say is the number one running back right now in pro football?
Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah. That was I was thinking the same thing. Up until he went to San Francisco, it's like the Panthers would have loved to have kept him.
Couldn't stay on the field.
Couldn't stay field.
It's a running, like you said, running backs are not that big anymore from a physical stature. Like, some of them are, but like they're getting tackled by guys that are much bigger than them. And the Panthers, like, they gave the ball to Christian McCaffrey 50 times a game, right? Like, I'm honestly really surprised, like, Le'Veon Bell, because he was more than 50% of the Steelers' offense for a few of those years. I'm surprised he never really got hurt. But that brings up another point of, like, these guys that think that they're bigger than the offense, even though they're so significant to the offense, when Le'Veon Bell sat out and thought, hey, I'm still Le'Veon Bell, I'm just going to go to a different team and they'll pay me. What happened when he went to a different team?
Didn't work out.
They can be replaced so much easier than some of these bigger, quarterback names or wide receivers or tight ends or people who are taking the money cap away from running backs. And it doesn't mean that they're not good. I mean, the Giants would be crazy not to pay Saquon Barkley, but at the end of the day, you can find other, like you said, sometimes 2 or 3 guys per team coming into the draft every year.
And pay him less. Yeah, and pay him less. Like, you can afford to have a guy that, hey, if we need a yard, put in this guy. If you want a guy out of the backfield, get this guy. It's hard to find a guy that sort of does all the positions at once. It's why I think Bijan went high. It's why I think Jahmyr Gibbs went high. It's because they found guys that's like, this guy can run, but even more of a threat, he's a threat when we put him out wide. Like, we can go 4 wide receiver set or three wide receiver with a tight end and then push him out in the backfield and throw him in the slot. And now the defense is like, I don't really have a great guy to cover this guy right now.
That's a tough mismatch.
And then if I pull him back into the box, it's like, if they want to bring a safety out, we'll pull him back in the box. And now you have to have a safety try to go against my lineman. Like, it's all about creating mismatches in the NFL. And ultimately, I think the other thing that's devalued the running back market is everyone's doing it. Like, really, the only team right now that I would sit back and go, they're a run-first team. It's the Titans.
Yeah.
Outside of them, the only other team that's sort of run first, and it's more because of their quarterback, and it's not that they're run first or just run heavy, it's the Ravens. Like, if you have a quarterback that's really fast, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, that's sort of where it plays into.
That's because they've designed that offense around Lamar Jackson's strength, which is running.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're run first, but it's not necessarily like we need to feed our running back the rock. It's let's just play to our strength because Lamar Jackson is a cheat code.
Correct. And both of those teams are what? Running back by committee. Yeah. Like, Fields, the Bears and the Ravens are running back by committee. They don't have that star. And it's because they don't need him. Like, they don't need a guy to touch it 40 times a game.
Agreed.
All they need is, I just need you to get 3 to 4 yards and not fumble the football.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. I don't need a home run threat. We'll worry about all these other positions all over the field. And I think that's where the running backs, they're getting greedy. Like, I get it. It's a business decision. But business-wise, you have to look across the league. Like, I think that's why Saquon and Josh Jacobs both took 1-year deals. Because no one else was going to pay him.
Yeah. So this brings up a good point of, like, the business side of it. And I don't know all the ins and outs of the details of it, but the collective bargaining agreement that the Players Association has come up with rookie contracts for these guys, I think is a big part of that, right? And it was a bad business decision for the running backs. They're allowed to sign these guys on rookie contracts by position, right? So running back is what, 4 or 5 years?
It's a 4-year with the ability to get a 5th year.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, from a running back's standpoint, those first 4 or 5 years are really like the best and possibly only years you're going to get out of that guy, regardless of whatever you're paying him.
And they're not taking him in the first round.
No. So they're not even paying him those top numbers. They're going to get all the prime years out of these running backs. And then when it's finally time for them to sign a contract, the owners are going, you're kind of past your prime. I don't need to pay you. There's another guy coming out next year who's going to be just as good as you, and I'll just do his rookie contract, right?
In the second round.
Yeah, or they extend him on the franchise tag, and these guys want to get paid. It's just not going to happen. It's the current situation with the collective bargaining agreement and the way that the game has changed is not set up for the running backs to get paid and have these mega deals like all these other positions are having. It's just not happening.
Which I know that part of it is also under the new CBA because 1994 is when the salary cap starts in the NFL. And then if you remember, especially I think Sam Bradford was the last one that took advantage of this. There was no cap on rookie deals. So you could make millions. And I think Sam Bradford, he signed some contract. It was unheard of. He was the most.
He's probably still getting paid.
For sure. Highest paid player in the NFL was $120 million deal. And there were veterans out there say what? He got 120. He's a rookie. He ain't played a snap. But it was getting out of control. So the NFL was hey, we're going to cap it based upon where you go in the draft. You can only make this much. It can only be this, and set it. Both times that happened, the running back market started to take a cliff.
Yeah.
Once there was a cap, it started to it didn't totally nosedive because we're still Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, you still are having these prime running backs. But then with the 2000s and the rookie deals going away, once those rookie deals went away and now they're under this structure, that's when all the stuff starts happening with running backs not even being drafted in the first round because they're why am I going to pay this guy this much money when I can get him in the second round?
Well, and then part of that is, and this was what one of our callers, called in and was talking about us is, it's a supply and demand thing where it's, the supply of running backs is way greater than the supply of good quarterbacks. So they're going to pay quarterbacks more, which I agree with. But at the same time, I think, and this again is not good for the running backs, but I think a lot of the owners realize how important the quarterback position is. And they force these deals for their quarterbacks when they really shouldn't be forced. I mean, talking about guys like Brock Osweiler, who's getting just mega deals from teams. I
can name one present day.
Daniel Jones. Yeah, I mean, and again, it's not to take away from Daniel Jones. He's fine. He can play in the NFL. But when the Giants sign him with that much money, there's none left for Saquon, right? And it's not
Which I think Saquon sits there at the end of the day, and he's look, for the running backs, I'm one of the best.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones ain't one of the best.
Yeah.
But you're willing to pay him, but you ain't willing to pay me.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at is I get it. The quarterback position is more important than the running back, period, dot. You can't convince me otherwise. But that doesn't mean that you have to pay that quarterback so much of your salary cap if he's not your Patty Mahomes, if he's not your Joe Burrow. Come out and make that guy win playoff games for you, take you to the Super Bowl. Do something like that before you sign those deals. But again, I think some of these owners, they like to force or, jump the gun or try to, I don't know, plant this flag of confidence of he's our guy. He's, going to be the next 10 years. And it's really, dude? Because really you're just hurting your organization by now you can't pay guys around that guy and he's not going to win you games.
I don't think owners have a fear of missing out with how's this guy going to play out? Sort of like Daniel Jones, he could be something great. I don't think it's that at all. I think that what the Giants fear even more is getting hung with someone that they're man, I would have rather just had Daniel Jones. But it's a sacrifice because, in my opinion, Daniel Jones is not worth that money.
No. And I totally get what you're saying. But in my, for the owners, it's who cares if you get stuck with Daniel Jones, right? That's fine. You don't have, that doesn't mean you have to pay him all that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, Brock Osweiler is a perfect example. Who in their right mind was yeah, let's pay this guy all our money?
The Texans.
Yeah. And again, that goes to show you where they're at, and why. You know what I mean? When you eat up that much salary cap for a guy who's not worth it, right? And again, if you find that quarterback, pay the man, right? I'm not saying don't pay the quarterback. Pay the man if he's the guy, but you can't just say he's the guy and that makes him the guy, right? Like you've got to have him prove that to you, and that would we talked about this too. Like Tom Brady used to take cuts in his salary so that the Patriots could go play or pay other people around him to make him better. You know what I mean? Like that is a huge sacrifice that works out. So, and the people should take a page out of that playbook, because if you've got all your money wrapped up in this one guy, doesn't matter how good he is, if there's nobody else around him, you're not going to win games.
And for anyone, I know we're taking a dig at the Giants and they're sort of at the bottom, but just pulling up the last few Super Bowl runners. So Kansas City, who's their running back last year? It's committee. Got Isaiah
McKinnon, Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
So 3 guys, all of which rookie deals, like except for McKinnon, but vastly on the lower end of the pay range.
Yeah.
Before him, the Rams. Who they have? They have, I think Akers was on that team, and they have Sonny Michel. Both guys, not in any type of stratosphere.
Darrell Henderson, too.
And Darrell Henderson. Both very low end of what I would say the running back market is. Year before, Tampa Bay. They got Leonard Fournette, of which they got a deal from for Jacksonville. He's not even in the league anymore. And that's sort of what's about to become a trend. Following year before that, Kansas City. Damian Williams.
Yep. He wasn't even their starter.
Yeah.
He took over for oh my gosh, I can't remember. But he didn't start the year as their starter. He eventually grew into their starter.
I couldn't tell you where he is right now.
Nope, I don't think he's on a team.
4 years ago, almost probably could have been Super Bowl MVP. He had a really good game that game. Not in the league anymore. Year before that is the Patriots going against the Rams. Patriots always been running back committee.
Yeah.
Like
Rex Burkhead, Damian Harris,
LeGarrette
Blount, Sonny Michel. Yeah.
Eagles the year before. I couldn't even tell you who the Eagles running back was. I think it was LeGarrette Blount when they won against the Patriots. Because the year before, that is right, because the year before, New England had LeGarrette Blount against Atlanta. Right. But it was also Dion Lewis. Like, year before that, Denver. I think it was, what is that? Noshawn Moreno? Was that?
I don't know.
It wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't Noshawn. I forget what his name was, but it's like, we're already back to 2017. It's like, and we could keep going. I think the last time a running back won the Super Bowl that I was like, oh, that was sort of like a franchise running back.
Terrell Davis?
Seattle with Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But like outside of him, you start to look at the last few Super Bowl winners. It's like, you don't need a star running back.
Nope.
You need a running back by committee. And until that changes, until a team is running away and just saying, hey, we have this star guy and he makes our team so much better that we're now winning games, other teams are going to be like, no, we don't need it. Like
when an owner would rather pay to transport a whale than his star running back, we got a problem.
Dude, for me, the sitting out, I get it's a business decision on these guys, and I'm not upset with them in the least. Like, you make your own decisions. History's told us they don't work out well. Like, if you want to sit out of your...
Not for the running back position.
Correct.
Yeah.
For the running... And I would argue for the individual guys. Like, Le'Veon Bell's the last guy that I can really remember that was like, hey, I'm gonna sit out. And it did not work out for him. And you look at the running back market this year, like, Joe Mixon took a pay cut to stay with the Bengals. Like, because I think the Bengals were telling him, look, we have Joe Burrow we got to pay. We got Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Higgins. One of those 3 wide receivers isn't going to be there anymore. It looks like it's going to be Higgins. And they pretty much, I'm sure, told Mixon, look, we love you to death. We'd love for you to be here. But if you don't take a pay cut, you're not on this team. We'll find someone else.
I mean, they can replace Joe Mixon. Like, you hate to say it, but he's a replaceable guy.
And I'd argue that outside of, like, Christian McCaffrey and maybe some of these higher draft picks, like Bijan, like maybe Najee Harris, which Najee's still on his rookie deal, once he reaches the end, I can totally see Pittsburgh saying, we'll go with someone else.
I mean, he's already fallen off in production, though. Like, his stats, he started out great, but he's already I mean, that's just the nature of the running back position. Like, you only get those first couple years of, like, this guy's doing really well, and you just get older, you're a little slower, you don't have that same step, and that's about the time that your deal is coming up, and instead of them paying you because you're still on this upward trajectory, they've already seen the downward trajectory happening. They go, hey, we're not going to pay you what you want, or that's going to make you the highest paid player in the NFL. It's just not the position to do it at.
And some of it is just like luck and timing. What the running backs, like Najee, you got to play under Kenny Pickett. It's like, hey, like not the best quarterback, and you're in a really good division. Like it, I would probably say that Najee's doing a lot better if he's like on the Bengals right now, or if he somehow got drafted by San Francisco, like, or the Eagles. Like, if you put him on any of those teams, you're like, man, he's probably like a stud running through everyone just because the team around him so much better. And that's sort of what happened. Like, it's funny because the Atlanta's proving it this year. Like, I'm interested to see how Bijan does over the course of the season. I think he's going to do great things for Atlanta. The issue is that in 5 years, who knows where Atlanta's going to be with a quarterback? I doubt highly
that it's Desmond Ritter still.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be Desmond Ritter. But you look at them, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, now Bijan. It's like, and you got to pay offensive linemen and your defense.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's so many pieces.
Somebody's got to go.
Yeah. And to sit back and go, hey, 5 to 10% of our cap's going to be taken up by this one guy that honestly doesn't touch the ball a lot. And I think that's the other big piece that we're sort of missing. Like we sort of hit on it, but it is about productivity. Like quarterback touches the ball every single time. But from a running back perspective, even Derrick Henry, if he gets 30 carries, that's unheard of now.
Well, I mean, again, the way the game has evolved, and this is just really the way that football is. Like, if your team starts getting down, what do?
Throw.
You got to throw the ball. That's the way you come back, right? Like, running backs can literally get game scripted out of the game, regardless of how good they are, just based on like the rest of the team's performance, right? Like a running back's productivity could be solely hinged upon like his defense, right? Like if the Giants defense just can't stop anybody, or even, his offense turns it over so much that the other opposing defense gets so many points just like that. And we saw it within the first quarter, he could be game scripted out because it's just like, we're down 20 points. We got to start throwing the rock.
And when that happens, it devalues the entire system, which part of it I don't want to say we're wrapping this up, but it's, you sit back and you look at the running backs and I say, ultimately, I think a lot of the fault lies with the running backs themselves, because there's very few running backs out there that are multidimensional, that you can sit back and go, hey, run downhill, catch a pass to the backfield, or go into the slot.
Or be a good run block or a pass blocker. I've seen plenty of guys, lately who they're talented, but they can't pass block, and they're just like, sorry, dude, we're not putting you in there because you're going to get our quarterback killed.
100%. And so they sit back and go, I'll just pay, instead of paying you $20 million a year, I'll go get McKinnon, pay him $2 million a year to go catch passes out of the backfield. Isaiah Pacheco, I got him on a rookie deal. I think it was like a 6th-round pick. I don't even want to know how low they're paying that man.
From a combined standpoint, you can get the same skill set spread across 3 separate guys that costs nowhere near what they would have to pay that one guy.
And it doesn't help, which I get. I think it's more by Indianapolis trying to just stick it to Taylor. But when they reached out, I think they asked the Packers for Aaron Jones and Christian Watson and a 1st-round pick, and they asked the Dolphins for a 1st round and either Jalen Waddle or Wilkins, the defensive lineman. And it's like all of those organizations were like, no.
So like, this is a great point. And again, it doesn't help the running back situation, but I think it's really disingenuous. Like I think the Colts had no real intention on trading Taylor. And they kind of did this like, oh, yeah, we'll let you seek a trade, full well knowing that they were going to ask for so much, no team was going to give them that much. And then, even if they did, right, if on the off chance that some team was like, yeah, we'll give you all these picks, the Colts still make out, right?
Yep.
They still, they're going to lose Jonathan Taylor, but they're going to get all this extra in return. And the funny thing is, and this is what sucks about it, is it's really like circular logic that doesn't make sense, right? Because let's just use the Colts and Jonathan Taylor. They go, we only want to pay you this much. And he goes, okay, then let me get to trade. And they go, okay, but we're going to ask as if you're this much value. And then Jonathan Taylor goes, well, then just pay me that. Like, pay me what you're willing to value me at for another team. And then the Colts go, no. Like, I'm not going to pay you here. I'm going to value you here, but still not pay you. We will only value you here if another team is willing to pay you. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't, it's like getting trades in fantasy football, right? Everybody wants to give you their bench guys for your starters. And you're like, no. They're like, oh, you never want to make trades. Like, that's what the Colts basically did.
It doesn't help with it's sort of this old analogy of like, if everyone can go on strike, then they'll value us more. Well, the problem is that the NFL, like, if you're like, I'll sit, that's the worst possible scenario for like Josh Jacobs and for Saquon. If they sit out, is that the guy sitting, there's always that Tony Pollard sitting behind Zeke Elliott.
Yeah.
Like, and that's all it takes. Is you come out and you're like, who? Oh, yeah, he's running good. You're like, man, I sort of hope that he doesn't stop running so good.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to pretend like I'm cheering for you, but like maybe you could break a leg or something.
yeah, please don't run too hard because you're going to cost me my money.
Well, I mean, and I heard it on the radio, Saquon sitting out actually would have hurt him because he didn't play. If he came back the next year, they could have just tagged him again. Like, he was in this loop of just like, dude, you're not escaping that tag. Like, you're either going to another team or you're getting tagged. Or, you know, again, they ended up coming up with this deal, which, you know, signing 1 year for $11 million versus signing the franchise tag for $10 million or vice versa, whatever it is. You know, I think he saw the writing on the wall of just like, I'm not escaping this, but I would rather play because they've seen what happens when you sit out.
With the injuries, and Saquon lived it after he tore out his knee, and he came back and he looks great. But it's one of those ones that if I was sitting back and I wanted to be honest with the running backs, it's take the money that you can get offered. Like, if you get offered a 2-year, $20 million deal, dude, take the money.
I mean, let's put things in perspective here. Like, these dudes aren't living in the poorhouse, right?
No.
Like, sure, they're not making the $100 million over 10 years like some of these quarterbacks are, but I mean, you got $10 million in 1 year. Like, you're doing all right.
And it's not so much of like, hey, you're making so much, live with it. It's more the fact of like, look at all the things working against you. Like, there's always, you're taking shots game in, game out. So much is demanded of you. The second you drop off, they're willing to find someone else. No one out there is willing to pay you. So if a team has you and they're willing to give you some money, you're almost in the position of take it. Because if not, history is showing right now, you're not going to get it back. Like, Le'Veon Bell did it, a couple other guys, but no one. I remember when Henry signed his deal, it was pretty cheap for the Titans, in all things considering. And everyone's like, I can't believe Henry took that. And I think it was because even the Titans were like, hey, man, we'll move on from you. Like, ultimately, it is a business. And that is that running backs may be mad. People may sit back and be like, I can't believe they're not paying this guy. And it's like, dude, when you look out across of it, it is a business decision.
100%. Like, I mean, I played running back, and you feel for the guys. But at the end of the day, you're like, dude, if I was an owner, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, sorry, that's just the way it is right now.
And it doesn't help that the better teams in football outside of really San Francisco, which even San Francisco still last season were still committed with Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is not playing every single play.
Yeah.
Like, he's coming out for series. Like, the quarterback's in there every single play. Your star wide receiver is almost in there every single play.
I can't actually think of a team right now that has a true every down back. And again, it makes sense. Like, you don't want to do that to a guy anymore.
He can't last.
Yeah.
And so why pay him like he is? Like, why am I going to pay a guy millions of dollars when half the game he's not on the field? Like, so ultimately, until you start to see teams win with this every down back, that this is our guy, we run in the daylight every single time, which the NFL's not built that way anymore.
I don't think we see that. It's never going to go back to that again.
It's not changing. The only way the only thing for guys to do is become the Jahmyr Gibbs, to become the Bijans, where it's like, hey, if you can just make yourself pretty much this running back, wide receiver, flex position, you'll do well.
And that then the collective bargaining agreement needs to change. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that needs to get put in place or change before any of that's going to start coming back to the running back. And right now, like we said, it's just not in the cards. And it's just a tough reality they need to accept.
Well, even Debo tried to fight that fight where he was like, hey, man, you're using me at running back so much. I need to be getting paid more than the rest of the wide receivers because I'm running the ball so much. And the 49ers were like, no. Like, they ended up giving him a good deal. But at the end of the day, they understand the same thing. Debo's been getting hurt. You look at Debo's stats, he hasn't been putting out in terms of these magical numbers here lately. He had 1 year where it was really just the Debo show in San Francisco. But outside of that, it's gone downhill.
Yeah, because, his volume's gone down significantly.
It's going to hurt. Like, you take too many shots. So, ultimately, it is one where, for the running backs, it's sort of a raw deal because you fall later in the draft, you get paid less, and that's really why they're upset. It's like, hey, man, I put in all these years for you as a third, fourth round pick, and now it's time for me to get paid, and I was really worth what you're about to pay me now for those first few years, but you're not back paying me.
Exactly.
For that work.
That's really, like, they're worth those contracts as the rookie, but because they're the rookie and they're unproven and they're going later in the rounds, they're not going to get that money, and there's no way owners are going to willingly give them more money for years of loyal service.
It's not going to it doesn't happen at all.
Nope.
And that's for every position. I mean, I remember when Calvin Johnson retired, it's still a sore subject. The Lions took back $1 million from his signing bonus, made him pay it back. And he's hated that organization ever since. But it's a business. Like, ultimately, owners are going to be owners. Like, if they want to change things, exactly what you said. The only way for the running backs to ever change anything, it's through the CBA.
Yep.
Like, you're going to have to say, hey, if you draft me in the third round, but I'm leading the league in touches or leading this team in touches, I need to have built-in things into this contract that help me get paid early on because you're paying me pennies on a contract that I'm actually worth. And until that changes, nothing's going to change for the running back market. They're going to continue to be devalued. And just pretty much, it's a washing cycle. Just pull out a new pair of underwear and throw it on. Because
every few years, there's just going to be another rookie coming out that gets the same raw deal. Just 4 years later, and when it's his time to get paid, they're going to find somebody else.
Yep. And by that time, he's already spent. Like, he's been put through the wash. Send him out to greener pastures, which is any team that's willing to just have a back that maybe it's sort of like Ezekiel Elliott right now. Like, hey, the Patriots, like, you're just looked at as like, you need to try really hard on these very few plays that we come in, or you're gone. Like, give 100% or you're out of here, because right now we'll find someone else. So it's tough for a running back, but at the same time, I understand it. The game's changed. It's no longer a running. If they could do away with the running position altogether, they would. The issue is you do have to run the football. Like, the game's designed to be able to run the football. It's just easy to find guys that can hit a hole and pick up a few yards when you need to. But ultimately, that's my thoughts of the running back position. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Appreciate everybody tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Time to pull chalks and get out.